Hey guys, it's Anthony here. So today we're going to be talking about return on investment and is it possible to get an infinite return on your investment? Stay tuned to find out. So we're joined on the call today by Mark McCorrie. Now, Mark has a degree in mathematics and he's also a software engineer. So it's going to be really great to get his insight today on infinite returns and return on investment, on what his thoughts are on that. Now, I actually came across Mark in the latest YPN magazine. He actually did an article on his hugely successful rent-to-rent business. So if you haven't already seen this, then follow the link below, do see the article, and I hope you enjoy it. So Mark, hope you're ready. Let's get into this. So yeah, I thought it was really, when I saw you post, I was a bit like, read through it, and then I read some of the comments, and I was like, people are getting a little bit upset about this. And then I thought, and then I read into the detail of it, and I thought, actually, this is a really good point, and it's a really good topic. It's a really great thing to talk about. So, you know, obviously the post was centered around buy, refurbish, refinance, and you know, the thought of infinite return on investment. And then it sort of got me thinking, and then I thought, okay, you know, it's going to be really good to sit and have a conversation with you because, you know, I read your article in the YPN, you know, I listened to the full article. As a mathematician, as a background, you know, this is a really decent conversation. And I thought, and then I was doing some research on it prior to our call, and it really did open up an absolute rabbit hole for me on the topic of, can you have an infinite return on investment?
If you've invested something, there's a finite amount of money you've invested, so you can never divide by zero.
Yeah, exactly.
There's quite a few things that people kind of like rattle out all the time, like things like, trying to think of examples now. Have you ever heard that expression, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
Bullshit. You just look it up in a dictionary. That is not the definition of insanity. That sounds more like persistence to me.
Yeah.
There's very much a lot of people just picking stuff off training courses and running with it, and not a lot of questioning going on. So there are quite a few little things like that where it's just getting recycled around the whole industry, but it's not actually true.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is, there's a couple of things I sort of wanted to talk through the whole topic with you about. So sort of like the first thing being is, when I've been taught return on investment, you know, for me, it's a case of quantifying how long it takes me to get my initial investment back, you know. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. And then, so when I looked at the detail of it, I thought, okay, well, this example of this buy, refurbish, refinance we've got there, for example, is we've invested, you know, just over £55,000 into the deal. On refinance, we've been able to get that money back plus an additional percentage on top of it. You know, which means, yeah, I've had my actual return on investment back. I've had my initial investment back. I've made an additional 2% profit, 2.8%, I believe it came out at. So an additional 2.8% profit. But then, like you said, I've now got 19 grand's worth of equity in the property. So, you know, and I suppose, like you said, there's different ways to look at it. It's a case of, okay, yes, I've had my initial investment back. Now I've got 19 grand equity in that property. So from my initial investment, I am now enjoying £239 profit every single month as a result of that. But then there's never a situation where, in that scenario, normally I would have thought about, well, okay, how am I now assessing the money that's left in the property versus, you know, the spread across my whole portfolio? Because when we look at it like that, like you say, that you've got 19 grand left in the property, you know, generating you £239 a month, which, you know, the return on investment is quite low. It's like 15% on that. I mean, for somebody that's building a portfolio, that might be a really great return on investment. But then, like you said, you know, and this is where it got me down the rabbit hole of it, because I was thinking, if you quantify that over time and said, actually, well, yes, I've got 19 grand's equity in this property. It's making me £239 profit. If that property then goes up in value and I've now got 39 grand's worth of equity in that property, making me £239 a month. If you look at it like that, your return on investment is really low. And I suppose, I don't think people really think about that and think about how often am I reassessing the spread across my portfolio with that return on investment. So I was just curious your take on that, and what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Any times the numbers change, you've got to reevaluate the return on investment. So this is why when you put your 55 in initially and you come to refinance, you've got to reassess the ROI completely because you've changed all the investment in the deal and the funding structure. So I don't know, it's probably worth looking at this thing on an annual basis of like what equity I've got in the property now, what return is it giving me now, because if you don't do that, you can't work out how your money's working for you and compare it with other options.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly. I think,
that's
sorry, carry on. Yeah.
That's basically why I posted on that comment. I knew it'd start an argument. I just like having arguments on Facebook now and again. But but it is important actually, because if you don't calculate the return on investment properly, if you do the numbers how I've done them, you can show how much your money's increased over that 6 months where you've bought it and refurbished it, and you've got the option of either selling it or refinancing at that point. If you don't do the numbers right, you can't actually run the numbers and see whether it's worth doing it or not. So like you can't compare these two equivalent deals that are infinite returns on investments unless you do the numbers right. So one of them might make you 60% on the refurb, and it might be a higher ROI on the back end. Until you do the numbers right, you can't compare anything. You can't compare it against other places where you could be investing your money.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that really struck me with it. And, you know, when I look at it, I think there's a couple of different ways that from an investment perspective or a learning perspective or getting into property, there's a couple of different ways you've got to look at this. Mm-hmm. And like you say, that there is that initial of, okay, well, how quickly am I getting the return on my money? You know, and I suppose if you're starting out, that infinite return on investment looks, you know, it looks very appealing. It looks very appealing from the perspective of, this is accessible, this strategy is accessible in terms of how quickly can I recycle my money. But then actually you said about balance sheets and you said about assessing things like that. And I think that then there's the other side of it. Well, actually, annually, you've got to then look at your accounts. You've got to look at your properties. You've got to look at, are they going up? Are they going down in value? Because ultimately you've got to make sure that like you said, your money is working hard for you. I think there's an element of time constraints in there as well. So, you know, if it is a case of you wouldn't keep selling and turning your properties every single year, because the time equity involved in that is obviously not realistic. But yeah, definitely, it's a real great take on it.
There's extra cost as well. So if you sell it, you've got to factor that in. Like what I did was quite an oversimplification. And I imagine, well, most figures are oversimplifications, aren't they? They don't include like all the little bits, otherwise you'd just be there forever, like calculating the exact figures. But yeah, like when you sell, it's costing you money to sell as well.
Yeah, definitely. Or I suppose when you're looking, and this is the thing you mentioned about, so the percentage you worked out was we created just over 20 grand's worth of equity, well, just 20 grand's worth of uplift in the property. So the return on the initial investment was 37% on that particular deal. But then obviously, like you say, you've got to assess, if you were to do it as a flip, what would that return on investment be? Because like you say, if the market isn't very fluid and you've got to account for time to sell the property, cost to sell the property, you know, you've got to assess it like that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think the longer you keep properties and the longer you have property deals, I think you've really got to assess, like you say, how hard your money's working for you. And you know what was funny, when I spoke to my my business partner after, and we're doing a development project at the minute, and we're going to sell all the units off after, because although we'll have created enough equity to keep them and do 25% loan to value, and we'll have put that equity in there, the money that's going to be left in the deals, the return on investment just isn't high enough. And even though I'd done that and never really thought about it, it got me thinking, well, that's exactly why we're selling off that deal, because we've got to look at how quick, you know, what can we do with that money again, and how can we make it work harder for us, you know, in that long-term scenario.
That's a great example, because if you'd done the normal numbers like anyone else, that would have probably told you infinite return on investment.
Well, it did.
But
that's the thing.
You do the numbers right, and that's made you now sell that deal. That's why it's important to do the numbers right. But the problem is, maths can get quite complicated, and like you just post any little maths problem on Facebook, you get about 10 different answers.
Yeah.
Because the average person isn't very good at working out the maths. As soon as they hear all these property gurus saying like infinite return, they just run it and go with it. That's the thing. Like doing the maths properly is actually quite hard. Like even
Yeah.
when I showed them the maths, like I didn't throw my qualifications around. I'm not that kind of. I don't think that's important at all. I just showed them the maths, and they still didn't believe it. It's the thing, like,
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And like you said, I think so. My question, I suppose, really for you is, if for somebody starting out in property, you know, if you, because there's got to be, I think that yes, there is a mathematical equation, there is a way to work it out, and there is, this is how you do return on investment. Do you think there's stages of it? You know, so do you think you can look at it from a perspective of, like I said, your initial return on investment, you've got that back, so you can benefit from that money to go and invest somewhere else. So that initial investment is now generating you 239 profit per month. Do you think there's a place to look at it, investment like that, or do you think there's one calculation to work it out as a whole?
it all depends how you're looking at it. I mean, if you're working at ROI, that's the way to do it. But there's obviously other things that are quite important as well. Like what people are trying to do is get the money back out so they can recycle it.
Yeah.
I think for them, if I was new and going into property and I had to deal like that, I'd refurbish it, and then at the point where I was going to sell it or refinance it, I'd just be looking at, well, what's the best use of my money? I've just made 37% in my refurb process, and that only took me 6 months. So over a year, that comes out to maybe 80% return on investment.
Yeah.
On an annual basis. That's a very, very high number. If I leave this house as it is and refinance it and pull my money back out, yes, I could go again and do another one, but the money I've left in is only making me 10%, 8%, whatever. So it's, have I got enough money if I sell the whole thing to then do 2 deals at the same time?
Yeah.
Where I'm actually making 80% return on that money instead of just 10%. If you've got an infinite amount of deals, so finding deals isn't a problem, then actually it's better off just to keep on selling them and redoing it, because your pot money will grow much faster. Because you're probably doing 80% return on investment when you're refurbishing them at the rates you're doing them and getting those margins on them. So you're better off running at 80% rather than the 14, 15% that you were running if you leave it in the deal. So it's also about the opportunity cost. Like if you've got that house there and it's making 14, 15%, if you've got nothing else to do with that money, it's fine, just leave it there. But if you can keep on finding deals, you're actually better off selling it, and your pot of money will grow much faster that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point, because like you say, that equity that we've created there in this deal, for example, that £19,000 equity we've created, you know, if I don't need that money, or, you know, the investor doesn't need that money to continue right now, and they're happy to park that money in that deal, then that's a great investment, because they've had their initial return. They're now making a great investment per month. So for them, that's really beneficial. But if they, you know, if they could use that money to do more deals, you know, to grow their portfolio quicker, then actually it's not necessarily worth parking it there. And I suppose,
exactly.
You know, so although there is a place to say, actually, yes, I'm getting a great return on my investment, you know, 100% infinite return, whatever you want to call it in terms of that perspective. But actually, you've got to reassess the money that's left in the deal as well, and look at how that's working for you too. Excellent.
I just think probably the best way to put it is just money in, money out, or recycling your cash. I mean, that's a valid way of putting it. It's just when you say it's infinite return, that just doesn't make any sense. You just got to be careful about warping multiple time periods into one, because that's when you get all the confusion. Like when your funding structure changes, you've got a different return. So like first period, second period, if you work out a return like that, you always get the right answer there.
Yeah. I think you've made a really good point there about you've got to look at it in different stages. So like you say, you've got to quantify it in different time periods. So what's my initial return on investment on the money I've invested, then the money left in the property, then annually going on from there. Because like we say, if that property goes up significantly in value, you know, you've still got a significant chunk of your money parked in that deal, then it is just getting lost there, isn't it, with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's been amazing speaking to you, and I really appreciate you having this conversation with me, because you know, I hope you don't mind me sharing it as well, sharing the video of the conversation about infinite return on investment, because I think it's great to have that conversation.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks, Matt.
See you soon. Thanks,
bye.